What is going on, everybody? I get a lot of comments on my videos about how is he doing more damage than me, or why am I not seeing the numbers that he's seeing, and I put together the build based on the build guide. Well, I want to flesh that out in one video altogether right here and talk about the possible reasons why you might not be seeing the same numbers that I'm seeing. So make sure you check all of these so that you're doing max damage with the same builds. Let's take a look at it. Alright, so first of all, this is the Ninja Tank build, my newest best favorite ultimate tank build. This one is really great using the Tempest. If you haven't seen the build guide, go check it out, go see the gameplay. This one's a beast, and I think it's going to be a good example here to talk about why there's differences or any sort of discrepancies you might be seeing in damage. Now, the first, before we go into the actual build pieces and stuff, so there could be events going on, there could be modifiers going on. Maybe I'm using different ones than what you're using. Now we have a whole system with a scale of modifiers that could be at play as well. If we look here, you can see that there's, it's different. There's my current level of level 5 Zealot and my global modifier. These are the stats I'm seeing with my ROF and damage bonus. This fluctuates depending on your zones, like you see. So especially in this season, there is a very high chance that you don't have the exact same modifiers, levels, and intensity that is going on with whoever you're watching, whether it's me or another build creator. So that is definitely something that could be going on. So keep in mind that. So keep that in mind when you're looking at gameplay. Now, I'm usually open about telling you what modifiers I'm using when I'm showing you gameplay, or if I'm choosing not to, but they are also impactful in the range. So that definitely could be a very likely reason why your damage might be different. The next thing that's going on is the obvious expertise. So you can see I have like 30% expertise. This is the max level on my Tempest, but I have like 25, for example, on these ones. Look, I think a lot of people overhype expertise, at least as far as PvE is concerned, but it still is very impactful. We can't deny that. Now, I've tested builds like this with a Tempest that has no expertise and not maxed rolls, and it still works, but obviously you're going to be hitting harder when you have 30 expertise on it. That's 30% extra weapon damage. That's a lot. That's going to add up. It doesn't mean that it's going to be useless without expertise, but in terms of discrepancy of damage, this is definitely one of the sources that's going to be giving you more damage. Now, the next obvious one is going to be the watch. If you're not at least level 1000, get to level 1000 as fast as possible, because that's when you start unlocking the scavenging points, but you're filling out this. If you don't have this filled out, for people that are making build videos and stuff, you don't even need to be a vet to be level 1000 plus. Like, this is really baseline. And what you're getting here is weapon damage, headshot damage, crit chance. Now, it's not that much, right? It's 10, but that still adds up for a build. And when you're trying to build towards the crit cap, having 10% just implicit on your build makes a difference. Same thing with base weapon damage, headshot damage, crit damage. So the watch is really important. So the most obvious things that we've covered so far, right, is going to be expertise, the watch, most obvious things to check. Then there's a lot of variability now with the seasons, so you got to watch out for that, but that's really hard to tell exactly what someone's using or not, or if you have the same or potentially even stronger seasonal modifiers. Now we're going to get into some more tricky ones that you're likely to have missed. So similar with the watch, how it's small but it does add up, the other thing is the rolls on the pieces. You could have the same rolls and crit chance and stuff, but if I'm maxed out everywhere, that is going to make a little bit of difference, and it might look a little bit bigger if you're hitting for 699k, and I'm hitting for 701. You see the 7 and it looks bigger or something, right? It's a small difference, but the changes in the attributes could make a difference. And you'll see for this one, for example, it's not even maxed, but I'm slowly optimizing it. Optimizing is very expensive. I'm broke because of optimizing. And this piece isn't done as well. But for the most part, and especially with this one with how much I've been loving the build, I will optimize it all the way to max. The other thing too, very similar to optimal maxed out rolls, is God rolled mods. I've been playing for a while. and especially when it comes to crit mods and stuff like that. I only have 113% protection from elites, but all my other mods are pretty high, and you'll like, these are maxed out, right? So if you have the same rolls, same mods, but they're not at the max, that 1%, 2% could add up and make a difference. And those are the main things that are probably getting missed if you don't have a fully min-maxed optimized setup and the rolls. That will make a difference at the end of the day with how much damage you're doing. But again, none of these should impact your gameplay or your playstyle more than just skill will. Honestly, you should be able to play. I've played with these builds, like I said, without any expertise, with not max rolls, especially when I'm testing. So when it comes down to it, your skill in the game and just familiarity with playing is going to outweigh these percents here and there from min-maxing your build. I'm into the game, and especially with builds I love, I invest in them, and I think you should too. But again, these won't outpace just playing the game. Now the last thing I want to show you guys here that is a very, very sneaky one is you want to look over here. You need to make sure that this is 15%. That's like a red. 15% extra damage. Make sure you have them set up depending on the specialization that you're using in the right slots. You can see I have different weapons depending on which specialization I'm using. Like I don't have pistol here because I never use a pistol with gunner. But with my tank, I want that extra damage from my pistol when I'm using technician with the artificer. That's the setup. So that's another sneaky location that you could be missing out if you're not changing your specialization damage. When it comes to specialization, there's not a lot of other things you need to change. The other place too is over here. There's usually 2 decision points. You have to decide between your weapons and then decide between this over here. For technician, it's skill damage or skill healing. Now I'm actually choosing skill healing, which you might think why, when you could get more damage. I know everyone's obsessed with damage, but for me, I want that extra little bit of artificer healing. I use technician a lot on a lot of builds, but one of my favorite playstyles and my favorite setup now is a tank with the big shield. And because I like it so much, I want to eke out that extra little bit of min-maxing by getting the skill healing rather than the skill damage. So these are all the small little things that could add up, and this is definitely a sneaky one. When it comes down to it, I never adjust these straight up. So if I am like using gunner and then using a rifle, or just gonna have less damage, I do not go in and then make sure before my run, okay, I'm choosing the specialization, I'm gonna switch it up. I never do that. I'm a set and forget kind of guy. And so these are the weapons that I typically use on this setup, and I get the damage most of the time. If I'm using something else, then it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But if you care about that extra 15%, like I said, it could add up. You're going to want to go in and make sure you switch it before you play, or have it set up so that every time you're using that specialization, you're using the right weapons. Always keep that in mind. Alright, y'all, I think that's everything I wanted to cover. I hope you learned something about building in damage and where the min-maxing and optimizing happens in the game. And so if you're seeing different numbers for damage, I think I covered every spot. But if I missed something, let me know down in the comments if you're seeing the same numbers as me or not. Alright, y'all, until the next one, we'll have another build guide coming soon. I'll see you there. Enjoy.